Today we're going to look at options for connecting your modern day free-to-air satellite TV receiver to these older style CRT analog televisions. Now these TVs are still usable even in this day and age of HD 4K video. They're great as secondary TVs or maybe a television in your garage. And it's a great way to reuse something you may already have, as well as keeping these old electronics out of landfills. Now, looking at the back of our satellite receiver, most of the time when you connect a modern TV to this receiver, you're going to use the HD out here, which is for an HDMI cable. That's not an option on CRT televisions because the picture is a standard definition. You're going to use these red, white, and yellow plugs you see here, also known as RCA composite video plugs. And these are very common on CRT televisions. Most receivers have these. And these are the plugs you're using. These are very easy to find. And this will give you the best possible picture quality on a CRT television. So that's our first option. Let's hook it up. Pretty simple setup. Just match up the colors to the plugs and do the same on the TV. And then over at your television, what you're going to want to do is set the input correctly. Press the input or AV button on the remote and go to the video or AV setting. And there's your picture. Now, these free satellite TV receivers are made to be used around the world, and because electric power around the world is not standardized, there's lots of video resolution settings here that are set for either 50 hertz or 60 hertz, and that refers to the power frequency that electric power cycles at. Here in North America, you have to use one that's 60 hertz. If you put it on one that is 50 hertz, you're going to get this flickering of the TV screen. So the best thing to do is to set the video resolution to either auto or 480p. That is the resolution for a standard definition TV in North America. And that will give you the best quality picture and take care of that flickering problem. Usually you can find the display resolution in the main menu under settings and then look for AV control or AV settings. And also on most of the free satellite TV receiver remote controls these days, there is a button somewhere on it that will say video format or V format or maybe TV mode. And you can repeatedly press this to cycle through the different resolutions until you find the one that is best for your TV. Now, one variation to these white, red, and yellow RCA plugs is found on some receivers like this one here made by GT Media. That little green plug that says AV out actually receives a little tiny plug that's the same size as your standard headphone cable, and this carries the audio and video signal to a Y adapter cable. Here's the other end of it here. The yellow is the video signal and the black cable is for the audio. Now in this particular cable, you only get mono sound, which is probably fine. Most CRTs usually only have one speaker unless they're a stereo TV. And in that case, you would have an adapter like this you could find with all three plugs. And here's the GT Media receiver set up with that AV cable there. It just plugs into the back and that gives you the picture and sound. And then out to the TV, the yellow plug is always for video. And here at the main menu, if you're looking for the video resolution, it's usually in the AV setting menu. And there it is right there, video resolution 480. And that's where you want to leave it for these older televisions. Now, if you want to connect your receiver to a CRT television that's even older, that doesn't even have RCA video plugs, but only this RF input, there's an option for that. So in this situation, what you would need is one of these. This is an RF modulator. This is an old Radio Shack model. And the way these work is they take an RCA video source and convert it to an RF signal that can then be modulated to channel 3 or 4. Let's take a look at how it's set up. RF modulators had their heyday back in the late 90s and early 2000s when DVD players were all the rage. And DVD players connected to TVs through these RCA plugs. But a lot of CRT televisions, which were still very common at the time, didn't always have RCA plugs on the back. So an RF modulator was a way of connecting a DVD player to an older television. All right, so here's the back of the modulator. And the input is over here, the standard RCA plugs you see here. These would be connected to the back of your receiver, and that would be your input side. And on the output side, you just take a piece of coaxial cable, connect it to this RF jack here that says 2TV, and then connect the other side of the coax to your television, and either use channel 3 or 4. There's a selector switch here. And one important note, this little switch here that says ohms 75 or 1K, make sure this is set to 75 ohm. That's the standard impedance of a coaxial cable. All right, so here is the setup. The modulator is connected to the receiver with the RCA video plugs. And then the coax cable gets connected to the output of the modulator to the back of the television. And then all you have to do is switch to the correct channel. And in this case, I'm using channel 4. You can see there. And that's it. And now you can go ahead and use your receiver and watch satellite TV. Now keep in mind, this does not give you an HD picture. But if you're using an old CRT, then you're likely not concerned with that. And nowadays, modulators are largely relegated to the vintage technology pile for people like me to use. And these are pretty easy to find at thrift stores for $3, $4, or $5. I've collected quite a few of them, and they're still useful if you want to modulate a video signal to a TV channel and even set up your own private cable TV channel in your house. If you find one of these, pick it up. Now, if you don't have an RF modulator, there's a third option to connect your receiver to an old CRT television. You can use a VCR, kind of like this nice quality JVC I picked up, and it plays and records perfectly. And I've got the original remote, and look at the price, $3.99. Can't go wrong. VCRs have RF modulators built into them that will send a signal to either channel 3 or 4, and you'll always start by connecting the RCA plugs to the back of your receiver and then to your VCR's RCA input plugs. Now keep in mind that the white plug always goes to the left audio channel and the red plug always goes to the right audio channel. And then after that, what you want to do is take your remote control, and this button here will either say TV VCR or sometimes it's labeled VTR. You want to press that until the receiver comes up on your TV screen. And that TV VCR button is just a switch that allows you to toggle back and forth between the tuner on your TV and your VCR. And when you turn the VCR button on, that means whatever is running through the VCR's tuner will be displayed on the TV. And interestingly enough, you can actually record programs from your satellite receiver to a VHS tape in this configuration. And here we are recording on VHS in 2022. And here it is in playback mode. Let's fast forward. So nostalgic.